Welcome back to Fragmented Files, the show where I ramble for a bit about some games I've been playing in a short, kind of off-the-cuff format. Let's get into it. Short and sweet is the name of the game with this one. You awake to realize that you're awake, and your brother is shouting outside. Creatures are invading your swamp, and you're sent to investigate simply because you have a sword. I really dig the color palette on this one, or rather, lack thereof. The striking red on black and white just pops and makes everything easy to read. It's an extremely straightforward romp where you'll fight monsters and meet NPCs, but it isn't anything too fancy overall. The game can easily be beaten in about half an hour and feels more like a prologue for a much larger game. I do wish it were a bit longer though, because it felt like just when things were getting started, it was over and the credits were rolling. I do hope that it eventually gets expanded into something much larger though, because it's a pretty decent game overall. You play as the horniest garlic man ever, and you're trying to make your way through a multi-floored dungeon to earn a wish. You'll quickly find, however, that maybe the wish isn't exactly what he's looking for. This is a pretty difficult platformer with some really neat ideas in the way you control yourself by bouncing off of floors and stuff, but what really stands out to me is just how off the wall everything is. There's crazy enemy designs, mini-games, platforming challenges, and even a pretty banging soundtrack to boot. But this one takes a lot of trial and error, especially in the post-credits area where your platforming will be put to the test to see if you've truly mastered the controls. I really dig this one and recommend checking it out if you don't mind a bit of frustration in the learning curve, especially in the final boss where it's more of a memorization game than anything. Get ready to rack up some deaths if you want to have your wish granted and become a super player. This is a cute little 3D platformer with an interesting gimmick. You have a gun that is a frog, and it can extend its tongue to help you in picking up objects and also stick to walls to pull you towards them. While it's a pretty relaxing game, there's plenty of clever ways to get around to improve your times on levels should you desire to do so. I really love the look of this game, but I just find that everything feels a bit stiff. The movement and mechanics just feel a bit too rigid for everything to flow smoothly. It's one of those games where you can really feel that your jump height is one block, if that makes sense, and you kinda have to work around that. Thankfully, it's a pretty short game that you can bang out in a few hours, and with the sequel already out, I hope that things got cleaned up a bit because the overall idea and atmosphere are solid. It just needed a little bit of refining to truly be something special. Check it out regardless, it's pretty fun. Probably one of the chillest games I've played in a while. It's a coming-of-age story where everyone chooses a mask to signify their purpose in the world, and you set off on a quest to find yours. There's a lot of platforming and world traversal going on with a ton of characters to meet who will give you side quests, but the overall objective is just to simply earn some masks and bring them back to the temple. You're not required to find all the masks, but you'd be missing out on a large part of the game by ignoring them, because a lot of the stuff that you do revolves around exploration and completing objectives for the characters you meet. The world itself is quite beautiful, taking place in a large open desert with a pretty great art style aside from some kinda choppy looking animations. You get a little hover bike too that you can drive around and customize, so it's enjoyable to just zone out and enjoy the environments. Most of the time though, you just look around for masks and stuff with practically no stress involved. Have you ever worked an office job where people are just constantly taking advantage of you? This game is for you then. In a world where no one can say no, you happen across a motivational tape that teaches you how to stand up for yourself and, as the title implies, say no more. It's a short game with honestly not much to do outside of just slapping buttons to say the word no, but it's got a charming and funny story that escalates pretty quickly into something crazy and even a little heartwarming. I feel where the game falls a bit short is in the fact that it plays its hand early and doesn't really evolve into anything more complicated. You get various ways to say no and charge up attacks, as well as do things like laugh at people when they make requests, but it doesn't really amount to anything. It's more of an experience than a game, but if you can find this one for cheap, it's worth it to play it for a couple of hours and get some laughs out of it. Back in the day, I played the hell out of Super Dodgeball for the NES, so when I heard someone made an RPG using similar mechanics, I was all for it. While this game does have a lot of cool things going for it, I feel as though it kind of misses the mark a little bit. The story goes that you're a kid named Otto who is chasing his dreams and joins a school where dodgeball is life. It's a fun time, but it wears on you after a while because as you unlock new characters and areas, the game doesn't really up the ante, so to speak. It's pretty tame and lacks a lot of the chaos a game like this should have. The story isn't really all that great and doesn't set the stakes very high. You're just kind of going through and checking off boxes for the sake of progression. I don't really care for any of the characters, and I feel like the game goes on a bit too long. It's a great basis for a sequel though, and I think if they could refine it while making the story more interesting, they would have something special in their hands. Give it a shot if you like what you see, but maybe go in with tempered expectations. At first it seemed like this was going to be a cool little puzzle shooter game, but it wears thin in a hurry. The planet is under attack by invaders from another dimension, and you need to stop them with your soda-powered weapons. The music and style are pretty good for the most part, but the gameplay is just kinda whatever. You travel from area to area, defeating multicolored monsters in sequences to improve your rating as well as get special weapons, but it feels like a rhythm game in the sense that in order to make the most of the stage, you need to memorize what the sequences are and whatnot. The whole vibe feels like one of those early 2000s cartoons about friendship, and the voice acting reflects that kind of magical girl feeling. What's kind of cool is how the music changes to be more upbeat the better you do, but the combat never really feels satisfying, and the story is kind of nonsensical and scatterbrained. It only took me a few hours to beat this one, but I walked away with a bit of a sour taste after all was said and done. A short and cozy 3D platformer where you play as a scout in a mushroom hat who is under the tutelage of an older mail carrier and earning patches to become a fully fledged mailman. You explore the areas delivering mail to the various characters you meet and helping them out with problems along the way. There's no danger, no complicated platforming, and the writing can be a little cringy at times, but overall, it's a solid game that's easy to get into and even got a few laughs out of me. I think my favorite character was probably Socks, because he just straight up does not want to talk to you and makes it very clear in simple broken English. There's some oddities along the way, like how ropes don't connect, or how I collected a bunch of bottle caps and rocks only to find out that they don't do anything in the game. Apparently it's some holdover content or something from the demo. It feels a bit unpolished, but that didn't really detract from the game because it's only a few hours long. My only real complaint was the ending, which I won't spoil, and while I get the message that they're going for, it feels kinda unfulfilling. If you like this style of game, definitely check it out on the cheap, because I was able to 100% it in about 3 hours, but I don't ever really see myself going back for another playthrough. You play as two demon-hunting sisters who are trying to rescue trapped students and break a curse affecting a castle. While at a glance, this might seem like a Castlevania-style game, it actually has a lot more in common with Mega Man. You play through stages and find secrets to gain little upgrades and stuff along the way. I played this through in co-op, and it was a pretty good time, but it took a lot of coordinating. Each sister has different methods of attack, with one being short-ranged and the other being long-ranged, and each one is obviously meant for certain situations. I felt like I was missing a lot of the story beats because these characters seemed to be from another series of games, but it didn't really detract from the gameplay. You can play the game solo, but I'd say if you can rope a buddy in for some co-op, you might have a pretty good time with this one if you can pick it up for cheap. It's not overly difficult or lengthy, so with a little dedication, you could probably bang it out in an evening. Set in the far-off year of 2030, violent sports have become a form of entertainment, and you play as a newcomer trying to be the next big champion. There's undertones of corporate influence and kind of a dystopian vibe, but what matters the most is the gameplay. You'll find yourself in arenas, shooting at dudes in slow motion, and doing tricks to reload as you progress and unlock new weapons and stuff. Everything works well for the most part, but the game goes from super fun to kinda tedious, and you'll eventually spend most of your time dodging instead of doing cool stuff, and it can be pretty tricky to reload unless you get really good. I like the overall vibe of this game, but I was thankful that it wasn't too long, as I felt it started to drag after a while. I enjoyed it for what it was though, and if you like what you see, check it out for yourself. It's a pretty good time. That's it for this episode. Thank you for watching, and if you like what I'm doing, feel free to subscribe and stuff. As always, more videos to come, so I'll see you next time.